This is Grief and Grit, from heartache to high fives with a dash of sass. The podcast that turns the tables on traditional grief talks with a fresh, sassy spin. Listen in for candid conversations about the messy, awkward, and downright hilarious aspects of dealing with loss. Because sometimes the best way to cope is with a little laughter and a lot of grit.
Welcome to Grief and Grit. This episode is part of a special series on suicide and mental health, released during Suicide Prevention Month. Suicide impacts far too many families, and yet it's often a conversation met with silence and stigma. By sharing stories of loss, resilience, and hope, we want to create space for honesty, healing, and connection. If you or someone you love is struggling, please know you are not alone. You can dial 988 in the U.S. for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline to be connected with support right away. We are honored to bring these conversations to light and thank today's guest for bravely sharing their story.
Hi, Korea.
Hi, Simony. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm not gonna lie. This has been a week.
I know.
I won't say that I'm feeling griefy, but I'm feeling heavy. I have had two dear friends they each lost their dad in the past week. And my daughter is home, like Amelie's homesick today. It piles on.
It does.
And I just hate this for my friends. I want to be there to support them. And it just, when it happens, when you see those you love and you've been on a grief journey before, you know what's in store for them. And it's hard, knowing what's coming their way, and the waves of emotion and all of that. So
it is hard, and it's triggering as well. It brings up stuff in you.
It's true, yeah. I mean, thankfully, I have heard and seen each of them laugh already, like trying to just find those rays of light and just some of the dark humor in the chaos. And I'm so proud of them, and I'm in awe of them, of how they're handling it. One who lost her dad, she also broke her foot 2 days before. And it's like, really? Can we just not can we please just give everyone a bit of a break?
So absolutely. Well, that's hard on you, my friend. That is hard on you.
Yeah, but it's life. It
is life.
The way
we've
it goes,
learned
right?
That's just part of the grief journey. It's our grief. It's other people's grief.
Right.
And,
it's so true.
It's how we. It's all part of the journey and how we react to it. And it's all just to say it's so normal when you are on a your own grief journey. It can be really triggering when you come across other people's journeys, especially those close to you.
Right.
So, what I'll tell you, what we tell everybody after they've been on our show, go do an Epsom salt bath. And
or I might take a nap.
If you were coming to me, I would make you some South African tea, which is the cure for everything.
That you did offer that, which is so sweet.
Yeah,
I'm so lucky to have you.
It works both ways.
Yeah.
But today we have a really special guest with us, Rachael Strauss, who lives in Toronto, Canada. And Rachael has been on her own grief journey. She lost her brother. He died by suicide. And Rachael, as I said before, I'm always in awe of people who are, have the courage to be so vulnerable and to put your story out there and, help others as they listen. So we're grateful to have you here today.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Be here.
Yes, and so I would just like to start, as I always do with, anyone who's been through loss, is tell our listeners, tell us a little bit about your brother, what he was like, and things that stand out to you, just so we get to know him a little bit more on the show.
Oh, yes. Okay, so my brother's name is Herschel Siegel, and I'm the oldest. There's six of us. And so there's 6 and 8 years, so we're pretty close in age. And as it goes, is when you have an even amount of number close in age, you tend to pair up. Like we're all very close, but you tend to pair up. So it was me, and then I have two brothers who are 13 months apart, and they were paired up. And then there was Herschel, who's number 4. And then I have a sister and a brother, and they paired up. So Herschel and I would say we were the pair. And he is, in like one word, I would probably say he was just like a uniquely fun, I can't even do a word. Like just an amazing boy who had lots to say, lots of personality, and he would do like everything with me. So I went through a High School Musical phase, and the person who sung all the songs with me and learned all the dances was Herschel.
Oh,
And he was just like that boy, and he had a smile that would just make you couldn't not smile back. And he was infectious, and just everything about him was just like you wanted him in your life. You gravitated towards him if he was in the room.
wow.
And yeah, that's Herschel, I would say.
Amazing. Amazing. So, how long has it been now since Herschel's been
Died.
born?
So it's been 2 and a bit years.
Oh,
His birthday
wow.
is actually September 27th.
Oh,
So yes, that's always a difficult day for us, but and this will have been his third birthday we are celebrating without him.
right, right. And how old would he have been, Rachel?
So he would have been 26, right? Sorry, 20, 27
Oh,
actually.
wow. Okay,
27, yeah.
right. And how is your grief journey? How Tell us a little bit about what it
About
was like,
mine.
yeah, when you found out, when, how has it been? Because, death by suicide is so unexpected, first of all.
Yeah.
And, so what has been your journey, if you wouldn't?
Okay, so well, let me give you a little bit of background.
Yeah.
Um, so Herschel was kind of, I always say a COVID casualty. And
Mm,
it sounds very basic, and I don't mean it in a basic way because it was totally suicide. But a COVID casualty, and I've seen them a lot now because ever since I started talking about it, lots of people have told me about their lost ones due to suicide.
right.
So, during COVID, he was in New York. He was at Yeshiva University, and they were one of actually the first universities to shut down. So all of these students in, I guess, March
Mm,
of 2020 were all sent away. And there was no option outside of learning online. And everybody experienced this all over, like
right.
literally all over the world,
Yeah.
nationally.
Right.
But this was a boy who was so, so, so happy to be among friends. He was a totally extrovert, needed friends. And what happened was he's also a naturally smart guy who kind of struggled in college because he kind of had to learn how to study. And
Mm,
that's very difficult. And
right.
you kind of don't realize that with naturally smart kids
It's
Right.
so
is
true.
until
You
they're
take it for
faced with
granted.
Yep.
it's crazy. And they don't realize until they're faced with a challenge of school and they're like, oh, how did I not do well?
Right.
Mm,
Um, and so he came back. He came back to Atlanta with all of his friends. No one was there. And he kind of fell into this like, well, I'm not doing well online because virtual learning is challenging to
for
begin with
everyone.
for
Absolutely.
everybody, right?
Yeah.
So he
Yep.
wasn't doing well. The way he thought about himself, his self-esteem dropped because he wasn't doing well, and he was looking at all of his siblings who seemed like they were doing well, even though we all struggle.
Absolutely.
But you don't see the struggle, right? And he just really went downhill. and he started being suicidal, I would say. He also got the diagnosis of um oh shucks, BP, not bipolar. It's a borderline, sorry, borderline personality disorder, which it's funny because in preparation for talking to you both today, I looked it up, and I've never actually looked it up before, because I just knew what it was because it was my brother.
Right.
Um, and I looked it up to read it, and it was like unbelievably like perfect. Like, should I read it? I'm sure I still have it
Yeah,
up. Let me
absolutely.
read
Yeah,
it for you
please.
guys because I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like straight up my brother. Here, let's see. Okay, it goes. Borderline personality disorder is a personality disorder characterized by a pervasive long-term pattern of significant interpersonal relationship instability, an acute fear of abandonment, and intense emotional outbursts. And
Wow.
apparently, now I've learned a lot more about it, unfortunately, or fortunately.
Right.
Um, but apparently, it actually is one of those things that you could have your whole life, but it lays dormant. And
Mm.
then it comes out at a very specific age. It
Some,
comes out at 22. And
wow.
it's terrible, but it has an insanely high suicide rate. But if you can get past the difficult years, then it's almost like it goes dormant again.
Okay.
Okay,
And
interesting.
this is like my very non-scientific
No, but that's so
explanation.
interesting.
Yeah, that's helpful.
And he at this, so if you look back, he was showing all these signs at that age.
Yes. And like it got really intense. And I think what happened is, from my understanding, and like I said, like I am so not an expert in this field, but from what we were told, um, it sounds like it lays dormant. And then if you have some intense complication in life, strong feelings, strong stressors, it kind of pops out.
Like a
Right.
trigger
So
And
there's a
some
trigger
sort.
to
I'm,
it.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a trigger. And I'm literally not a psychologist, so I
You're
can't
doing a
say,
great job of
but I'm
explaining
just
it.
saying this is
Yeah.
what we've been told.
Right,
Right.
right.
So, and I'll tell you the reason I know this, or I seem like I know this, is when you deal with someone who has borderline personality disorder, you don't do it like you think. And as a sibling, so like a few months before he actually took his life, I got in a big fight with him and he was being absolutely ridiculous.
Mhm.
Like it was such a ridiculous fight. We had rented a house. My whole family and my family from South Africa had rented a house in Florida. And I came in, and there was one room, and I'm the oldest, and I have a daughter. And I came in, and my husband wasn't there, and there was one big room. And I'm like, well, I'm going to get that room. And this little 23-year-old boy was like, no, I'm going to. And he lost his mind. And I lost my mind. And my dad had to like move me away. And I'm like, not young. I'm 29. Like, I'm
Right.
not like, this
Right.
isn't like
Yeah.
I was also 25, you know?
Right.
I lost my mind because I'm like, you are such a little piece of work. What is wrong with you? And I had to like, and my dad and mom kind of pulled me aside and were like, stop it, Rachel, stop it. I'm like, are you flipping serious? I need to curb my behavior? Like,
Right.
this boy makes no sense. And they had to, like, this is like one of many examples, but
Okay.
they had to be like, Rachel, just let it go, let it go, let it go. And I was like, I couldn't believe that I had just been schooled. Like, I really couldn't. I
Right.
still
Right.
get
It was
mad about it.
Right.
because it was unreasonable in your
It
mind.
makes
Agree.
no sense.
Made no
Right.
Like,
It's
sense.
not rational.
none.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But this was, they had to kind of teach us, my parents, how to navigate Herschel
Mm.
because he doesn't make sense. Like at the end, I said emotional outbursts. Like when he is on a spiral and he's doing a huge emotional outburst, you can't stop him.
Mm.
And that's why what's very interesting when you hear borderline personality disorder, you should feel bad for the person who has it. But really, 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 I always say you should look at the people around them because those are the people you should feel even worse for.
Wow.
because they're the ones that are being hurt and
Squeeze
spoken
that.
to incorrectly and
Right.
having bits of rage towards them.
And also watching their loved ones spiral, and there's nothing they can do about it at the end of the day. Like,
Oh,
it's
absolutely. Yeah,
horrifying.
it
Absolutely
is.
horrifying.
It's
Yeah.
really terrifying.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's just a side point. But he got this diagnosis, and I would say just um, one thing after another. He did a couple attempts at suicide, and none of them worked. He tried overdosing, a lot of different things. A lot of like I didn't think I'd see him overdose, but like my husband one Pesach, this was all in 2020, 2021.
Right.
Um, like he caught him just kind of trying to overdose. So it was very difficult, and he got a lot of help, and my parents were like incredibly supportive and really helped him out. And that was kind of his decline, I would say, towards suicide.
Mhm.
And then he got really great. And that's the problem, I think, with suicide. Actually, someone told us this. There's this book called Walking on Eggshells.
Mhm.
I don't know if either of you heard it. It's a famous book. It's specific for borderline personality disorder, but honestly, it's a great book.
Right.
And in the book, it says something along the lines, and I always thought of this when dealing with him, is that a person who has borderline personality disorder, imagine walking a tightrope your entire life.
Mm.
And can you imagine the pressure that's there? Your
Oh my
whole life,
God.
Right.
one side, another side,
Right.
wobbling. And that's when you see the intense emotional activity, the flare-ups when they're wobbling on this tightrope.
Right.
And I
Wow.
think that's really the greatest way to think about it. So there he was, kind of walking on his tightrope, his whole life. And I'm not going to say we, I'm going to say I always knew I would, I hoped I wouldn't, but I always knew I'd probably get a phone call telling me my brother died.
Wow.
Um, it was really rough in the beginning, like when he really, really, really was depressed. Like when we would leave to go back to Toronto, I would always like cry on the plane.
Wow.
Because I'd be like, that could be my last hug.
Mm.
And it was really rough. And then we spent this beautiful Pesach. I say beautiful. When I say beautiful, I mean we were all together,
Right.
and that's what I look back on. I
Right.
look back on the fact that we were all together on Pesach, um, and then we left,
Right.
and I gave him a hug. I really, at that point, he was doing okay in my head.
Right.
But that's why I like to give you the tightrope to
Mm.
image, because
Correct.
a person on a tightrope is never doing okay,
Absolutely.
Right.
right? It's just a
Absolutely.
hard reality.
Yeah.
So we left, and I turned 30 that year. And I went away on my trip. I went with a couple friends to the Bahamas, and we were shopping outside, and my sister called me twice, three times, and I'm like, I'm in the Bahamas. I'm on vacation. Like, come on.
Leave me alone.
And then she wrote, "It's an emergency. Call me back." And I thought, oh no, she's gotten in another crazy Uber. Like, that's just what happens with her. She gets in these crazy Uber instances. And then she FaceTimed me. I answered it. And then she said to me, she's like, I have sad news. Herschel has left this world.
Bye.
Wow.
And
Bye.
you know, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I might tear up. Um,
No.
you never know. You can know and prepare that something's coming. And like I said, like I really knew, I knew one day I'm gonna get the worst phone call of my life.
Yeah.
But getting it
Yeah.
is
It's a whole different
horrible.
story.
Right.
It's horrible.
Of course. It's
It's
unimaginable.
totally horrible. And I got it. And this was Friday afternoon. And I keep Shabbat, the Jewish Sabbath. So I couldn't hop on a flight. It's not I couldn't. Some people do in strong instances. I didn't. So I didn't hop on a flight. We found a flight for me Saturday night that then got canceled to Sunday. I had a brother all the way in Indonesia who had to figure out. I had a brother in Israel who had to figure it out. And I had a sister in New York. And one brother was in Atlanta at the time. And they weren't, since he took his life, they said that you don't like they need an autopsy essentially. So usually you bury someone like within that day. But I guess thankfully they needed an autopsy. And this is kind of where I always say, like, because you mentioned, Simone, that like, oh, where does your grief journey take you? And I'm a positive poly. I would say most of my family is the positive poly. And my hardest part in the beginning of navigating my brother being dying, was that there's no silver lining for suicide.
Right.
And it's very, very hard. There's literally none. You could say Shiva, but that's not true because Shiva actually is meant to gather people when you lose someone in their 90s, please God.
Right.
So that's not it. There's literally none, like none. So I had to like let myself continue being myself and navigate this. So my way is like, there's gotta be something. And reflecting like a couple months later, because I'm a reflector. I kind of talk to myself. But months later, there are things, and this is where they start. But so like it's silly, but this is how you kind of look for things. For instance, Herschel had lots of options for where he was going to take his life. And he took it in the house he was renting with a group of people. And he didn't have to do that. And it sounds crazy, but that's a huge gift. None of us will ever pass that house unless we want to. It's not on our way places. And so that's like, I would say the first thing. And then the second thing, like that I think of, and there's like so many of these weird situations, but I mentioned all of us being elsewhere. This is like, it happened. This was April 27th, we found out. So my dad's birthday is April 30th. April 30th was the Sunday. And that's when Herschel was supposed to be buried. But all of us were across the globe and we had ample time to get there for Sunday. It doesn't make any sense. But they were like one after another, like my flights kept getting delayed. My sister's flight in New York is right here, got delayed. My brother from Indonesia couldn't figure out how to get there by the time. And my brother in Israel. And we all couldn't get there for Sunday. And so he was buried on May 1st.
Wow. So not your father's birthday.
Not my dad's birthday. And no one even realized this. I realized it later.
Right.
And I asked my dad. So I was like to my dad, I'm like, Dad, were you nervous? Like that Herschel would be buried on your birthday? Because I mean, how terrible is that?
Right.
And he said, I was terrified.
Wow.
And I remember him saying that because I remember thinking, holy hell, you just lost a child, excuse me, to suicide. And you also could have had that child be buried on your birthday. But, and these are like what I call the silver linings, because this is like some kind of part of my mantra at the moment, is that God's going to send you terrible things. Terrible, terrible, terrible things. And it's your job in those terrible things to look for the good that he's also sent you.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Absolutely.
call them the cushions.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
I
need
love
to look
that.
for the cushions, and that's what gets you able to move through your grief
Mhm.
because there's cushions everywhere.
Right.
But they're not, it's hard to see them if you're
In
like
it.
in within your grief. And like I said, it took me a month after to
Mhm.
kind of pull through these silver linings
Mhm.
or the cushions. But I just think like that's the only way you can, especially with suicide. And I say especially with suicide because even though it's a mental illness, as we know, is called the invisible illness.
Right.
Um, Suicide is something your brain can't handle because it happens when you least expect it.
Mhm.
They did it themselves. For them to get to that point, for them to do it, it doesn't compute. And
Right.
you didn't have any warning.
Right.
Right.
So it's like you didn't have time to watch them in the hospital decline. You didn't have any of this time. You didn't have years and years and years with them.
Right.
You just they're gone and you don't know. And
Right.
it's interesting because we were at the not interesting, but we we were at the funeral, um, which was the most terrible thing I've ever been to in my life.
Wow.
It's horrible. It was my second funeral I've been to and not a fun one. Um, so we're sitting in this funeral that my dad the morning of said, it's actually funny. The morning of the funeral, we all showed up and we all were wearing red. Red was Herschel's favorite color.
Wow.
And we
No
all
one
just
has
showed up.
spoken about
No
this.
one spoke about it. Each one of us were
Wow.
wearing red. And we
Yeah.
went to this funeral that my dad told me would probably be like 10, 20 people. And there were, I think, 800 in total. There were
Wow.
400 people on Zoom and
Wow.
400 people there. Everybody showed up.
Yeah.
And we're sitting under this tent listening to the rabbi. And I couldn't tell you what he said, but he said something very strong for me. And I'm telling you because someone's gonna hear this and hopefully it will help them. Um, he said, I know this feels like you all, um, you, you lost. I
Mm.
know this feels like that, but you have to remember that you actually got 3 more years. Um, Herschel's first attempt was 2020, and he died in 2023.
Right. Right.
And that always stands with me because
Yeah.
let me tell you what happened in those 3 years for me. Um, there's one grandchild at the moment. As I said, thank please God, we have another one. Not us, but my brother in Israel has one coming soon. Please God. Um, and my daughter knows him because
Exactly.
you remember things.
Yes.
And she's able to talk about Uncle Herschel. Granted, every year her memories are different.
Mhm.
It kind of hurts. But she is able to remember him and talk to him. And we have beautiful videos of him and her.
Yeah.
And so in those 3 years, when the world was plummeting for my poor parents and my siblings in Atlanta because he was really in a terrible place, I got memories that my child will have of him.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something I can ever
Mm.
hope to like. I'm
Right.
just grateful I have them.
Through this. Yeah.
So he said that at the funeral, and I always like think that was like it's just a very powerful thing. Because with suicide also, especially if the person's been struggling, which I don't want to generalize, but most of the time, if by the time the person actually takes their life, they were struggling and their loved ones know that they were struggling. Um, but yeah, so you do feel like you've lost because you've put in all this energy and time and changing your behavior to appease them, to
Right.
keep them alive, and then boom, they're gone. And you're like, oh, okay. I guess I didn't do enough or whatever it is.
Right.
And he just, I guess, gave it a little up.
Yeah.
At, um, and it clearly stuck because I don't remember anything else from the
Right. But
funeral.
that's a beautiful
Yeah.
saying. I mean, it's so true, and I'm sure that will resonate with people.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Even if a
Yeah.
the loved one being sick, you have, those couple of
Right.
extra years with them. And
Mm-hmm.
as you say, I mean, mental illness is up there with all illness.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it really
It's
is, if
awful.
not
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And because it's getting better, um, but the stigma attached to dying by suicide is still so prevalent. And I think it is getting better. There is an improvement. People are more open about talking about it and
Right.
accepting it.
More compassionate.
Yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. But how have you found the stigma to be? Like from the beginning, um, like till today?
Mm-hmm.
What helped you with the stigma? Did you
With the
did you see
stigma.
it? Did you feel it?
Yeah, it's actually so interesting that you asked this because um, when Herschel died, we, up until that point, I don't think most people didn't know he was struggling. He was actually pretty open about it, but my family and I, we weren't. We just weren't.
Right.
I don't think possibly maybe there was an embarrassment factor. I can't speak for other people. I just knew that we just didn't talk about it.
Mm,
So Herschel died, and I'm a talker. And I remember I went online, and I have an Instagram page where I'm a dental hygienist by trade. So I just went online and I started talking about that my brother died by suicide. And I got like insane messages like, oh my gosh, really? My brother did also. I didn't know that. And I got all these messages and it also helped me. I think, and that was like my way of coping is knowing that by talking about my journey through grief, I was able to help someone else. And if I could help someone else,
absolutely.
then that helped me. So I
100%.
started talking about it. I just talked about it, but about it a year ago. It was Rosh Hashanah, so it was last year. Someone in Shul in Toronto. We moved here 3 years ago, and someone in Shul came up to me. I don't really know him, to be
Mhm.
honest. He's in his 50s, and he came up to me and said, "Oh, you're Rachel Strauss." And I said, "Yeah, hi." And he goes, "I have to tell you something. Um, everybody in this show knows that your brother died by suicide, and I commend you for that." And I was like, "What? Like what?"
Yeah.
And it was so weird. And he's
Mm,
like, "No, I have to tell you, I have a brother who died by suicide." And nobody spoke about the fact that he died by suicide.
right.
But every single person in this synagogue knows that you lost your brother and that he died by suicide. And I think it's very important for people to know when someone dies by suicide. And I came home, we like went into, pray, and I came back and I told my husband, it's weird, but it's actually one of the greatest compliments I've ever received.
Absolutely.
Yes. I
Absolutely.
could. Yeah.
Because you should know. You should know that I lost my brother, but you also should know I lost him by suicide.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to know that.
Right.
And did it become easier in your family, or are there family members who don't talk about it?
Yes, there's definitely family members who don't talk about it. I would say, during Shiva, family grief specialist came to us. We were all very like, "What are you doing in our house? Are you kidding me?" And he sat us around, the five of us and my parents, and he was amazing. But he was speaking, he told us lots of amazing things. And at the end of it, my mom was like trying, I mean, she has now five children who basically are going through something she
Yes.
never, ever, ever
Of
dreamed they would
course.
have to deal
Of
with. And
course.
so she looked at him and said, his name is Mitch, he's amazing, and said, "Mitch, tell my kids that everybody needs a therapist, right?"
Mm.
And because
Yes.
she just wanted us to
Yes.
know, like that,
Ah,
And I remember he said to us, he said, he unfortunately lost his wife to suicide, which is what directed him to become a family suicide specialist, etc. Um, and he said he has three kids, and one of his children went through therapy and it worked out beautifully. One of his kids spoke to his friends. His
Mhm.
friends were, that was his trick. And
Right.
his last child really leaned into his significant other and just himself.
Right.
And he said, it doesn't matter how you do it. It just know that everybody has their own way of dealing with it. And
Mhm.
I think that resonated with me because I think, you know, when something happens collectively to a family, I think the powers of be, aka like, the mom and dad want
Right.
you to confide in your grief with them.
Mm.
My style is not that.
Right. Right.
I'm not I'm not an open griever. I talk to anybody and everyone. Every single person knows I lost my brother and he might pop up.
Right.
But like, I was like watching a TV show and this was shortly after we got back. I was running on the treadmill watching a TV show and there was a graveyard. And I had to get off the treadmill and I just lost my mind for like 20 minutes crying. I
Mm.
didn't need someone to be there.
Right.
That was
Absolutely.
my way of dealing with it.
Right.
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 Like
Yeah.
I don't look out to call someone, but I do have, so I would say like all five of us deal with it very differently.
Mhm.
Um, I think when we're all together, we talk about it. We talk about Herschel because that's how we keep him alive.
Mhm.
But on our own, I think
Being on your own journey.
yeah, we all kind of do it in
Um,
our own way.
right. Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. And so when it happened, and I know community is always such a huge part of losing someone, um, was your community, because I know you're in Toronto and then you have a community in Atlanta, were they supportive and were they there for you? Did they help the family through?
Yes.
Did you allow
I
them?
think yes. I
Okay.
would say I have never ever experienced such an unbelievable communal support,
Mm.
both in Atlanta and honestly, my Toronto community was insanely amazing. Um, in Atlanta, people didn't stop coming over. We had food for weeks, months.
Yeah.
Um, Also, people showed up. Like, I think that's what I also learned. I always say, like, before I lost Herschel, if I found out a friend of mine lost someone, would I have hopped on a plane and showed up? And I like to think I would, but you have no idea if you would.
Correct.
And people hopped, like, there was this one girl who I recently saw in New York, and I saw her and I just started crying when I saw her. I was like, oh
Right.
my goodness. She just like hopped on a plane. She took off the day of work and came to our house. None of us know who this girl is. This
Wow.
random person showed up in our house and sat down and just started talking about Herschel.
Wow.
I was it
And we were
someone who
like,
knew.
Wow.
who are you? And she said, I heard he died. I heard he took his life. And I knew I had to be here to tell you how amazing he is.
That's
Oh,
And
amazing.
it just blew my mind.
yeah.
But that's how everybody was. Like everybody, one after another, food was coming in, support was coming in. Like just it was remarkable. And then when I came back to Toronto, I had only lived in Toronto for 7 months.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, we had just moved to
Oh my
Toronto.
gosh. I didn't know. I didn't realize
Oh
that.
yeah, we had just moved and suddenly like people had stopped by. Things were arriving. People were like, "Rachel, come, you need to go on a walk with me." And I'm like, "What is this? Where am I?"
Right.
And it taught me that like it taught me two things about just if someone loses anyone is number one, it's not the elephant in the room.
Mm,
You need to talk about
huge
it. It
one.
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It
Mm.
doesn't matter
That's
where it is. It doesn't
huge.
matter if you're at a
Right.
celebration. It
It's
doesn't
more
matter.
it's more awkward when people don't talk about it. It's
Also,
like,
the people remember who
right.
didn't talk to them
Oh
about
yeah.
it.
Yes.
It's terrible. It's like you
Oh, yeah.
barely remember who did, but you
Right.
remember who didn't. It's
Yeah.
horrible.
It's
Yeah.
true. But
It's so true. And then also you just show up.
Right.
yes.
You don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I now know, like, I didn't know this. You need to show up. If someone loses anybody, you show up
Right.
and you tell them why you're there. You don't need to know. You don't
Absolutely.
need to have anything to say about the person.
Right.
Just show up.
Yep.
You just show up. And that's what
Yeah.
I learned from all these people
Right.
Yeah.
because they knew how to do it. And they were one at a time, again and again and again.
Mhm.
And I'm like, how do you all know this lesson? And I don't.
Right. And now you do.
Right.
Now I do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Rachel, what are some of the things that have helped you find peace, find, if you're having a bad day or just some of the things that have grounded you through this whole journey that you could maybe suggest to people who are listening who are on this new grief journey or have been on it for a while? Like, are there certain things, resources perhaps that you have that have helped
I
you?
mean, I would say, I think the hardest part with grief is you go back to your life and you try to live it the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually what I had to learn the hard way. And someone told me, they said, it's like driving down a highway, but there was a rock slide.
Mm,
You have to build a new road. You cannot drive down that same highway.
right.
And with me, I had to remember that, like, my road is not there. I can't go home and live my life. I'm missing a brother.
Right.
Right.
And I'm missing a close brother that I adored and loved. And yes, he was so annoying when he was dealing with his like when he was going down in the ducks. Like I told you, I fought with him like no other. But at
Right.
the end of the day, I'm missing a brother. And also through losing a sibling, you also lose your parents, right? My parents will never be the same. And that's difficult.
True.
I will never be the same. So I think like the first step I would say with my grief is that, they say there's 5 stages of grief. I actually don't believe in them. I don't believe in them at all. I don't think there can be any stages of grief. It's
I
just you and
agree.
your grief. And
I
you feel like you're on an island, you're alone, but you have to know it's a new road and you kind of need to get driving lessons again.
I love that.
I needed driving lessons again. I actually, when we got back, I leaned on my husband, and he's amazing and took it. And he actually said, Rachel, like, I also lost Herschel. We've been married 10 years, so
Right.
he's
Very-
he's
Oh,
been in our family for a long time.
yeah.
Um, and so he's like, I also lost Herschel. I think we need to get a therapist. And I was like, okay, because I'm not going to say no. And I give him credit. He found an amazing grief specialist, and she has taught me a lot of things. But one of the things she also taught me is that, like, grief is one of those things that just hits you out of the blue. And the best way to deal with it is you sit in it.
Exactly.
My grief
Exactly.
comes when I drive. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And I'm driving, I'm thinking things, and I suddenly remember Herschel's dead. And then I just I like cry.
Yeah.
And I stop. I have to stop. But I used to drive while I was crying. Not the safest, but whatever. But that's what I used to do. And now I realize you can't drive and cry. You need to sit. And it's not because it's not safe, even though obviously it's not so safe. Um, but you need to sit there and you need to cry and you need to let the grief burst out. Um, I also think that, like, you have to know, like, and this is how I felt because I would document how I felt actually, like through every like 3 months, 6 months. And at 6 months, like I said, it's like it's like having a wound that you haven't patched up.
Okay.
and you never got it sewn
Yeah.
shut. And it's just bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. And you stop it, but it's still there. And I would say now, after 2 and a bit years, um, I would say, I guess I got stitches, but they're not permanent and they sometimes break.
Yeah.
That's what I would tell people, but I also would say that you need to also, there's this thing like, oh, death anniversary, like all these kind of things. Like, you actually need to change that verbiage. And I do a celebration of his life.
Mhm.
And I do believe that bringing your friends and family or whoever is important to you together and just sharing beautiful words about your lost one also heals a part of you. And so I would say, like, those are the three things I personally would tell someone is know that your road is no longer there. Learn how to drive again. When the grief comes, sit in it. Doesn't matter where it is. I've done it. I've been with a patient and remembered I lost my brother and gone to the bathroom and just sobbed.
Right.
Because you literally can't expect when it's gonna come. And then I really think you should celebrate their life because at this point, he's gone. He's gone forever. I will never have my brother again.
Right.
But I have 24 years of his life. Some bad, some not fun, some hilarious, some crying.
Yeah.
But those are the years that I celebrate. So, like for his birthday, September 27th, my daughter Daphne and I will go and we will get a piece of cake and we will celebrate his life on his birthday. We did this I didn't do this the first year. And on his birthday, I biked Daphne to school. And I ran into a fence post and my bike broke.
Oh
And
no.
I said, Herschel, you screwed up. Like, thank you for the worst day ever. And then Daphne started saying, oh no, Uncle Herschel's birthday, your bike's
Oh.
gonna break. And I'm like, okay, shame on me. So now we have a birthday party for him.
Very
Love
And
it.
it's our birthday party for Herschel in heaven. And that's those are my
And
three so
yeah,
big.
Aw.
that's a beautiful thing because
Yeah.
you that way you keep his memory alive
Right.
forever.
Yes.
Forever.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's so
Yeah.
important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel, I commend you. So, I mean, honestly, your whole outlook and your whole persona is just
It's
so
incredible.
admirable,
Really.
considering the loss that you've been through.
Mhm.
And I have no doubt that there are many listeners out there who certainly have learned a lot from you today.
Yeah.
And like I said in the beginning, thank you for sharing Herschel with us. I feel
Yeah.
like I
Thank
know
you.
him. I
Yes.
feel like we lost out not really knowing, knowing him here on earth, but we certainly got a good sense of who he was and definitely a good sense of who you are.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for being with us today and
Yeah.
sharing your story.
Thank you.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening to this episode of Grief and Grit. We will be back with another episode next week. And in the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Substack. We also have Patreon up and running. So please support us, and we will continue to bring these important stories to light and make sure that no one feels so alone in their grief. Everyone has such a unique experience, and it's also a universal thing that we all go through. So, thank you for listening. Rachel, thank you so, so much.
Thank you, Rachel.
And we
Thank
will
you.
see
See
y'all
you
soon.
soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you love what you heard, please follow Grief and Grit and share our podcast with your friends and family.